Hi, I'm Perrin, Beatty, President of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. Now, the official description of my job is that I lead the federal arm of the Chamber movement in Canada, which is a network of 450 chambers of commerce and boards of trade in every province and territory, representing over 200,000 small, medium, and large-sized businesses. But we're meeting in the shadow of the Peace Tower, and I've always thought a better description of the Chamber is that we're the Parliament of business. We bring together firms of every size, from every industry, and from every region of the country to debate issues that matter most to Canada's economy. Last night I came back from Charlottetown, where we were holding our annual general meeting. That's where our policy platform is formed by resolutions proposed and debated by our network of local chambers. Now, over the last few years, I've noticed a clear trend, and that's that Canada's business community is preoccupied with the need to responsibly get our natural resources to world markets. We had a resolution calling for a national energy strategy, and another on the need for closer intergovernmental cooperation on electricity infrastructure. We had 4 separate resolutions about the need for oil and gas pipelines, and one policy proposal that dealt with rail service and capacity issues. There was a proposal that talked of disruptions at Canada's largest port, and another on the need for roads and other infrastructure to support the mining sector. Now, too many of these issues come to public debate in isolation. Rail capacity, investments in port facilities, pipelines, electricity infrastructure, road construction, when in fact they're all part of the same national challenge. Canada has prospered as a supplier of natural resources to the U.S. and Europe. We must now become a supplier to the world's emerging economies as well. We need to build the infrastructure that will allow us to compete in the 21st century. Our generation's St. Lawrence Seaway or CPR. This all has to be done in a way that respects the environment and helps to usher in a new era of cooperation with Canada's Aboriginal peoples. This is truly a national challenge. However, when a community is far from a forest, a farm, or a mine site, the connections to the resource sector are not always obvious. Economies don't end at the border. We seem to understand that fact when we think about developments in our neighbour to the south, but not when we're considering what's happening in a different part of our own country. Natural resources create great value for the Canadian economy through the process of locating, of financing, of planning and permitting, of designing, constructing, and transporting natural resource commodities. In 2012, Ontario manufacturers and service providers received $3.4 billion from oil projects happening in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Just to give you something to compare with that year, the agriculture industry contributed $4 billion to Ontario's GDP. Now, what does that $3.4 billion look like? Tenaris, a pipe manufacturer, is a good example. The company takes iron ore that's mined in Quebec by Rio Tinto and transforms it into steel bar in their facility in Quebec. That steel bar is then processed into a pipeline at Sault Ste. Marie and then shipped to an oil sands or shale gas well in Alberta. What starts as iron ore in Quebec with a value of $100 per ton is processed in Ontario. By the time that it's ready to be installed in Alberta, it's reached a value of $3,000 per ton. The importance of natural resource supply chains is why some of Canada's most important resource towns are in fact our largest cities. There isn't a single mine, oil rig, or paper mill in Toronto, but the city is a global center of finance and professional services for the resource industries, and particularly for mining. In 2013, fully 60% of the issuers on the Toronto Stock Exchange and TSX Venture Exchange belong to the mining, energy, forest product, or clean technology sectors. To a great extent, the natural resource sector is Canada's high-tech sector. Our unique advantage in the global economy is that we have both a resource-based industry and a knowledge-based industry. The Canadian Council of Academies compiled a report in 2006 to pinpoint the areas in which Canada's science and technology excels relative to the rest of the world. Each and every one of the top 10 areas where Canada had global strength in science and technology was related to natural resources or environmental protection. I'm going to finish by quoting from a small publication you probably haven't heard about, The Walrus, which ran an interesting article last month that included the following quotation. Romer reasoned that Canada was poised to be a world leader in resource extraction, and that our future was tied to that endeavor. Mid-Canada was rich in minerals, oil, and gas, largely untouched, and it had a habitable climate. The key to the plan was new infrastructure, which both the government and the private sector would finance. The article was referring to the Mid-Canada Development Corridor, a bold plan first put forward by Richard Romer half a century ago. Its goal, and I quote again, was to weave the country's forgotten midland into the larger national fabric. This is an area of the country that includes Newfoundland's offshore oil, Labrador's cobalt, copper, iron ore, and nickel, Quebec's copper, hydro projects, and nickel, Ontario's chromite, copper, and gold, Manitoba's gold fields and nickel, Saskatchewan's potash and uranium, Alberta's oil sands, British Columbia's proposed liquid natural gas facilities, and the diamonds, gold, copper, oil, and gas that exists in our territories. The Canadian Chamber is a founding member of the Partnership for Resource Trade. This is a group that believes that we can't afford to keep discussing these developments in isolation. They face the same challenges, and particularly the requirement for new infrastructure to ensure that we reach the markets that need these commodities the most. We need leadership in finding solutions, because getting this right is critical to every community and every family throughout Canada. Thank you so much.